Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today we're going to be making this pretty card using the Altenew Build a Flower Rose die and stamp set. I'm also going to be using our Holtz tonic stamp platform, and what I'm hoping that I will be able to show you is how easy that makes it to do repeat stamping of multi-layered images. So for this project I'm going to need 2 of my roses here. So taking the first layer, we're going to put my card right into the corner of the stamp platform here. Then we're positioning the first layer of the rose also into the corner of the lid, of the stamp platform, and then collecting it with the lid. I'm then going to use my palest colour, because you always start with your palest colour and then work your way up to your darkest. I'm going to stamp that first layer. And then in order to get my repeat without having to move my stamp, which is the important part, not so important now, but it will be important when we get to the layering, I just simply twist my card around and position the next corner into the corner of the stamp platform. Now obviously you can continue doing that in more corners if you wanted more roses. However, I only want the 2, so I'm now taking my next layer of my stamp and I'm positioning it over the top of my already stamped image to make sure it's in the correct position. I then collect it with the lid, ink it up and stamp. And again, this was with my next darkest ink, and what I tended to do was set them out in order to make sure I got it correct each time. And then I just twist my card again. I do not now have to move my stamp, so we know that this layer will be in the correct position when we stamp it. We don't even need to test it because we put it into the corner, so it cannot be wrong. So now we get the third layer, and again, this means that this is almost more important if you're doing more than 2, to be honest, because if you're doing like 3 or 4 of these, you only have to position this once onto the actual rose. So this is just going to make it so much speedier to get each layer, because the only time you have to fiddle around is that one time for each layer. So you could carry on doing 4 on one card, and you could then put another card in. You could do 8 or 12 or whatever you wanted, and you could just see how it's perfectly stamping each time, just because we're positioning it in the corner there. And then I got a little bit insecure there, and you saw I just tested it, but you really don't need to. And again here I've got the next darkest ink. Now with regards to these inks, I am using the Altenew and I was using sets. However, there were more layers. I think there's 5 layers, so I needed, or 6 layers in fact, so I needed the extra 2 inks. So obviously there's only 4 in the set, so I actually just fiddled around with some of the other pinks, and I think it's really nice because one of them in particular was almost, it didn't match, but it gave it a real pop, and I really liked that. On the back and on their website, Altenew have put a guide, so like with these odd pieces it's quite hard sometimes to work out the position, so it just tells you what points to look for to match them up, and that helps speed things up. And you can see how beautiful that's coming. And again, I've just twisted it around and we don't have to move anything. I literally just ink it and go. Now I wouldn't normally show every single piece of this, and I would probably show the first couple of layers and then jump to the finished rose. However, 2 things here. I wanted first to show you really how simple the layering can be for repeated images with the stamp platform. Secondly, I wanted to show you the colours that I used. Well, obviously I could have listed those, so that's kind of a secondary, well, one part B. But also I felt that sometimes these flowers are quite sort of complicated with the layering, and they're not always shown on the videos here, and I thought for some of you might find it helpful for me to actually show each layer, where it comes in the sequence and what colour I've used for it, etc., so you could really see how it all fits together. So it was sort of a twofold sort of idea with this video, as one was obviously to show this multi-layering repeated, but also to show this specific stamp and how the layering works. Now you'll just notice here I've done the final one, and when I stamped it, it just wasn't quite dark enough the colour for me, so I stamped it twice. You'll also notice there that I realised that the stamp wasn't in the corner, but you'll also see it doesn't look that terrible when you make a mistake. It was fixable, and so I just put it back in the corner, ignored the fact I'd already stamped that, and then still did two. And you can see I would be hard pushed to know which one was the one that was faulty in the end. It was really quite close. So you have a look. Can you tell? I don't think it's that obvious. I actually am not sure. I think it was that last one. So you can see there, you can get away with it even with a dark colour, so don't panic if you go wrong. Just try and see if you can put it right like I did there. If it doesn't work, then you have to restamp it, I guess. But anyway, here we are on the leaves. Now for this I want 4, so I'm doing some green ones and sort of warm grey tone. So I'm doing the 2 green first in this corner, and then I'm going to do the 2 grey ones. Now you'll notice I'm not even wiping the stamp. It's pale ink, it's taken all the ink onto the card, it's absorbing it perfectly fine. I believe I'm using Nina here for my stamping, by the way, just to say. I find that stamps on really nicely. I really like how it sort of absorbs these inks enough. And also don't bear in mind, by the way, when you do stamp, particularly I noticed with these sort of large areas, like particularly these base stamps where you're getting quite a lot of area in your stamp, it kind of looks almost a bit patchy to start with, but give it literally a couple of minutes, not even that, and it will start to settle. It's kind of like your Copic markers and stuff like that, you know how they kind of settle. So yeah, just don't panic if you think, oh, it just looks a bit darker than I thought, or it's not quite as smooth as you hoped. It will sort itself out usually. And if it doesn't, you're probably going to hide it anyway with the layers, so I won't worry too much. So you'll see I've got the next layer there, and this time obviously I'm starting with the grey, because the grey was the leaf that was in the corner, so we'll just go the other way around. It's no big deal, but it's just making it quicker. And you'll see what I mean now about stamping in the 4s and just how much simpler it was. Now at this point I'm still picking up the little magnets and moving them each time. A little bit later on I realised I could just slide the paper with them on, and it sort of made it so much quicker as well, and I actually stopped picking them up, and I just think it's coming out so nice. And the only thing you need to remember to be sure of is that you make sure that your card is always pushed into that corner, and then you can't go wrong. So then we've got the next layer, and I think we've got 4 layers on our leaves. So again, you're just going to line it up. Sometimes I find it's easier to use a little pokey tool to line these stamps up, because your fingers sort of stick to the stamp sometimes. So it's sometimes a bit easier. Now you see there I was fiddling with the paper. It just didn't quite feel like it was in the corner properly, so I just wanted to alter that to make sure, because that, as I said, is the real key to getting this to work. Doesn't this look absolutely gorgeous? These people are so clever. Sounded like a little pony then. Now that was quite a dark ink, being the green, so that occasion I did wipe it off. I wanted to be sure, because the greys now are getting a lot softer than the greens, so I didn't really want that in there, especially as it would only be in one, and for what I had in mind, that would be a problem. That said, you know, you could do it with that. It would give an interesting look to have that subtle undertone of the greens. I think that would look quite pretty. It's just not what I wanted for today, but I'd be interested to see how it looked. Now, this one was a bit fiddly. I ended up being up the other way to what I thought when I first put it on, that you saw there. That was, I'd actually twisted it around. So just be aware, because it looks like it's a stalk and it wasn't, it was the other end. But I love these greys, they're absolutely gorgeous. They're really like a warm grey. And there's one in the middle that's got quite a hue of mossy tone through it, which really adds a nice edge to the grey of the leaves here. And you can see now I've started just twisting it with the magnets on, because I suddenly was like, oh yeah, why didn't I do that before? And this is our final layer, by the way. And doesn't that make such a difference? Just pops. So you can see there, just again fussing to make sure it's in the corner properly. That is the only thing you need to worry about. So that is all our leaves stamped as well. Aren't they absolutely beautiful? So you can see with that how it works for 4 even better. And you imagine having each time with these 4 to have to layer each one. Now with this, I actually thought I filmed it, but I didn't, so apologies. So I just stamped a with love sentiment, and now we're on to our dies. So I've just cut around the stamped images to make them fit into my little tattered lace baby blue. I wanted to show that with these dies you don't need a big die cutting machine. So if this is the kind of thing that you're only wanting to do, you'll almost certainly get away with just using this little tiny machine for nearly all of these dies. Obviously always just check the dimensions. And all I've done is, I didn't show you all of these because obviously that I didn't need to do, but I've cut out all my flowers and all my leaves, and all I did there was just to tape them to position them because there is no magnetic on that. So I've got here a pre-cut. This is actually from my paper guy, and I asked him to pre-cut and score a 6x6 card, and he also does the envelopes to match, so the whites all match because whites don't always match. And then I got him to produce a 1/4 inch smaller layer, so a 5 3/4 inch layer. So next I'm applying my sentiment using my lovely glue gel, because I knew where I wanted that to go, and it's going to help me lay out where my flowers are going to go. So I'm going to take my leaves, and I want to give them a bit of shape and dimension, so just using my bone folder I'm just going to curve the leaves so that we get that depth. And then I'm using my glue gel to also help with that by positioning the glue gel in the point where I want the leaf to be the highest, so that the glue gel holds that leaf up. And then I'm trying initially just to slide it underneath so I can get it in the right place, but it occurred to me that if I did that the glue would kind of slide also and it would be a bit of a mess, so I just took a chance that I would get it in the right place. And then I'm just popping a little bit of pressure on the center there where the stalk is, again just to assist in that curve and shape by putting the stalk down towards the card and keeping the leaves up higher. And you can see here a little bit better than before how I'm just curving those leaves. Do be careful, you have to be a little bit strong with them, but don't be so strong that you pull the leaves off, because I've done that before. Although again, it's not the end of the world, you can fix it. Normally what I just do if I do pull a leaf off is I actually stick everything else down and then stick that down in position. It will normally look okay. And again, just putting my glue gel into the point where I want it to be the highest. I haven't put any glue at all on the stalks. It isn't necessary. I will curl them down towards the card with just by giving a bit of pressure, and the other part will stay up. So as with the leaves, I'm just curling our flowers to give it a bit of shape and dimension. I just think it adds a real nice look to it. And then again, as with the leaves, I'm adding the glue only to the center where I want the highest point to be. It doesn't need it on the rest, it's fine. And then I've done the same on my second flower. Now the height of that is totally up to you. I've gone for quite a subtle dimension. I think that looks really effective and pretty. So now taking the last set of grey leaves that we had, I chopped it up a little with my scissors. So I'm taking the top 3, at the moment you can only see one, but there's the third one, and I'm curving and gluing as we did before and just popping it up there. And then I'm taking the bottom 2 and just popping them down there, and I think that looks really effective. I quite like how breaking that up has made a difference to the sort of look and balance of it. I like that. And as a final touch on the outside, I'm taking these glass droplets and just adding a couple to the flowers themselves, and then some to the card. And I've just adhered those using a little tiny dot of my glue gel. And then as a final touch to the whole card, I've taken a sheet of this beautiful pink coloured vellum. I've cut it to fit on the inside of the card, so basically 5 3/4 inch square, so that it's just within the inside of the card, and I'm then just putting a line of tape pen across the top, and I'm putting it down as if I was putting as a whole mat, so it sits evenly on all sides with the white, but the only difference is that that piece sort of lifts up, and I just think that gives a really nice effect of pop of colour to the inside. And that is it. So I hope you have enjoyed making this card with me, and I hope that you found the techniques of the repeat stamping of multi-layered stamps using the stamp platform helpful. But most of all, I just hope you have enjoyed watching this card being made. That's it for now. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, to go to the paragraph below this video, click on show more, and click on the link to the corresponding blog post, where you will find lots more information, most importantly loads of photos and links to products used. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon, and bye for now. Bye!
Looking up at a pale pink sky, it's telling me I'm gonna be alright. I'm gonna be alright. Say hello to my Mr. Moon. Like nature, I will be renewed. I will be renewed. I feel your covering, helping me to breathe. A warm wind is drying my eyes. It's telling me I'm gonna be alright. I'm gonna be alright. I say goodbye to melancholy me, like a leaf falls from a tree, as a leaf falls from the tree.